It's Wednesday, October 12th, 2016, and it's time for WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker. I'm Greg Watkins, the editor at WorthPoint.com, and tonight we have Harry, but we also have Will Seippel, the CEO of WorthPoint.com. Hello, guys.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
I've been waiting for him to check up on us. You know that?
Well, yeah, it's about time.
Well, now, first of all, Will wanted to know if I'm in a palace, and I am in a palace of sorts tonight. You may notice I'm more appropriately attired in fancier background than that dump of papers down in my office in Michigan. But I am at the St. Regis Hotel in Washington, D.C., and I'm here to attend the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee. As many of our listeners know, that our viewers know, I am a member of the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee, known as CSAC. We are a group of 13 individuals that advise the Postmaster General on the subject matter and design of stamps. And so you go in the post office, you buy a stamp. Harry had something to do with the subject and the design. It's an awesome responsibility, actually. I've been on the committee.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, you don't know about our meetings. I mean, we don't always agree on every subject.
Oh, is that right? Is it pretty contentious?
Well, no, it's a lot of fun because, we're there trying to develop a program that reflects the best that America has to offer and honor the best that America has to offer. And so, it's there. Like everything else, not many people are mailing letters in the past as they were in the past. So we don't do quite as many stamps, which makes the competition to select a stamp subject all the harder. And I'm allowed to do this tonight because I was accused from an evening meeting early. So Mary Ann Penner, who is the head of the Stamps Division, said I had to mention her name on this video, or else I wouldn't be allowed back in the meeting tomorrow.
Okay, good. Well, I guess since we have Will here,
we're going to start with Will. I was going to make him wait 20 minutes before we got to him.
I want to know, yeah, Harry, can I get a word in and ask, is this a political, the election's coming up? I thought it might be a political statement.
No, actually what happens is that the post office, as you know, is not under the rule of Congress. The post office is a separate organization, although it has a relationship with Congress and whatever. And this is an appointment by the Postmaster General. You serve for 3 years. You can be appointed a total of 4 times. I'm in my 5th year of my second 3-year. I'm in my 5th year, but it's the 2nd year of my second term on there. I'm hoping I'm going to get reappointed for another 3 years. It used to be you would serve for life. I like that much better, but then they decided there were some people that were on entirely too long. But no, it's an awesome responsibility. I mean, we're responsible to the general public too, because the stamp program is supposed to reflect stamp wishes of the general public. So we spend a lot of time looking at subjects recommended by the general public, and then the Postmaster General, of course, can recommend subjects, and we ourselves can recommend some subjects, and it's quite an honor, actually. But we're here to talk about antiques and collectibles. I don't want to get involved with stamp collectibles tonight, but while I have Will here, and we will get to WorthPoint in a minute, I want to go back. Last week, Will, as you know, we talked about this new law in California about autographs and anything autographed and the requirements of certificates of authenticity and so forth. I really had a chance this past week to look at that law, and that law has vast implications. The one that I think has impressed me the most is that, in our business, caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, is the operating principle that we work on in the antiques and collectibles field. And that is, it's up to the buyer to know what they're buying. It's not necessarily a burden on the seller to do that. This law directly counteracts caveat emptor. It puts the burden on the seller, not only to know what they're selling, but to authenticate what they're selling. Now, boy, I'll tell you what, if we ask everybody in this trade to authenticate what they're selling, we're in big trouble, because virtually everybody in trade has no authenticating experience. And then they have to guarantee that authentication on a certificate of authenticity for a period of 7 years. Now, the question is, what's going to happen? I read the bill very thoroughly, and what surprised me is there's no penalties in the bill for violating it. And now I wonder, if this is much ado about nothing. Is this one of those white collar laws that the legislature passes, but they never expect anybody to enforce it? And if somebody, what happens if they prove fraud? I mean, there's no penalties. Is it a fine? Is it 6 months in prison? Is it 2 years in prison? Is it cumulative? There's a lot of unanswered questions about this law. My own feeling is it's going to be largely ignored. The more I thought about it, the more I'm convinced it's just going to get ignored. And 6 months to a year from now, the law may still be on the books, but nobody's going to be doing anything about it. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure if I agree, because what if the online marketplaces say you can't sell your item in California without their certificate because they're trying to comply with the law?
Yeah, but the problem is that was the thing that I first got concerned about too, Will. But we don't have policemen online. eBay isn't a policeman. eBay is a selling site. So, okay, eBay can say, well, if you're a California seller, you're supposed to have a certificate of authenticity for any autographed material. You're supposed to put this guarantee out there. And what happens if they don't? eBay isn't going to throw them off. eBay isn't going to enforce the California law. eBay is just a platform to sell things. The person that thinks that the law has been violated is going to have to file suit in California. And if that buyer's in Maine or Florida, they're not going to go to California and file suit.
Well, they may ask you for your certification number. I know I sell on eBay, and I sell certifications with autographs sometimes. And that you have to put who certified it, and they'll only allow so many different groups that certify them.
Yeah, but the law doesn't call for that.
The law. I'm just saying what could happen.
Well, but that's the whole point. I think we've been looking so much at worst case scenarios that we're not being realistic and looking at what is going to happen.
And can I sell to somebody in California without one?
Yes. It's a one-way street law. It applies only to people in California selling objects. Now, it specifically talks about them selling online, and it specifically requires them to do all this stuff online. But who's going to enforce it? I mean, none of the online platforms will. I mean, that was one of the reasons why I think eBay cut back its collectible division and so forth. Was that it was spending so much time trying to enforce stuff that there was just more trouble than it was worth. So I think
it'd be interesting to see.
Well, right now the hue and cry is coming from the antiquarian booksellers who sell a lot of autographed books, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think they have it. But the law has what's interesting in the law is it has very specific language defining what is a limited edition collectible. This is another side of the law that nobody's talking about. There are detailed descriptions in there what is a limited edition collectible and how you can sell it in California. I mean, the thing we all have to keep our fingers crossed, is for two things. One, that somebody in the legislature is going to wise up and amend the law to reflect the marketplace in the antiques and collectible sector in a viable way. But the other thing, too, is that we got to keep our fingers crossed that no other state adopts this. And I think that's where the battle's going to get fought. Just keep it to California, and when they fall into the ocean, it'll be okay.
Okay.
Well, we have Will here. We've invited Will on board to talk about a very exciting thing.
I'm sorry, Harry. I'm just laughing a second. I have a map with California as an island.
Yes, I can understand that. It floated away, did it?
It's an old map, but
but we have you here because WorthPoint. I've been around this internet game for 20 years, and I've seen sites come and go. I've seen some sites survive, and it's a rare site to survive. But WorthPoint has survived. It's building a reputation for its enormous database and so forth. And now, after all the hard work that you and many others put into WorthPoint, you're trying to raise some additional capital, and you're doing it in a rather unique way. So why don't you explain to our listeners what's going on? Our viewers. Or what are they? Our people. Are they viewers, listeners? No, viewers.
They're viewers, yes. They're watching us. I hope they are.
They're whatever you want them to be, Harry. That's the accounting answer. But, in seriousness, we're doing something called crowdsourcing, which is under the Jobs Act. And with crowdsourcing, you can it's a whole different type of offering that will hopefully lead to a public registration, which we said we're going to try. And it allows you to go out to your user base as well as other people, and market an offering in the stock of your company. And it started under the Jobs Act. And I think I read somewhere that about 18 companies have tried this so far, and somewhere around 11 or so were successful. So not a lot of people have done it. And when I was down at Georgia Tech last night talking to venture and tech people, there really was not a lot of understanding of what it is. But, we've gone about and gotten a lot of interest, and we're somewhere between 1.5 and one and a quarter, $1.5 million dollars of interest so far of people that want to buy stock in the company.
And stock means that there's a piece of paper that's a share of stock. And when you express an interest, are you say I'd like to buy 50 shares or 100 shares? Is there a price attached to that?
Right now, there's $1 of interest and there's no shares, because we have to work with the board to decide how much you make a share of stock worth. So that has to do with, one, how you value the company, and second, how much you want your share of stock to be. So you can decide if you want to have a $10 stock and your company's worth $100, or you can decide if your company's still worth $100 and you want to have a $1 share. So right now, the price of the share is irrelevant, but how we value the company is what's going to be the more relevant feature.
So if somebody comes onto the WorthPoint website and says, well, I'd be interested in 100 shares or 200 shares, they're not committing to any dollar amount at this point. Once the offering is made, then you'll come back and say you can subscribe to the shares of stock at this price if you wish. Is that the way it works?
Well, first, you don't say how many shares of stock you want. You say how much are you interested in investing. And we take investments as low as $200, and it's not a firm commitment. You can change your mind any time along the way. You can say, geez, I don't like the share price, or geez, I don't like, it's Christmas time, I don't have the money. So it's not a hard and fast commitment, and that right now we're focusing on a dollar amount and not the share amount.
And right now you're talking primarily, you're reaching out to individuals primarily, but there are companies and others that put corporate dollars into this too, right?
There will be. It's done all the way you would do a typical public offering, in that we have to go through the Securities Exchange Commission. We have to file, instead of a normal 1S, which is what bigger companies do, we file a 1A. And that we've already filed with the SEC because we've been pleased with the response so far. And the SEC's promised us comments back by October 27th on our filing. And when we turn around and send that back with comments to their comments, the filing will be made public so anybody can see it. They can actually see the first draft and they can see the second draft.
And then, assuming that you go forward, do you hope to be being able to say to people, okay, this is what a share is worth, and if you want to honor your financial commitment, this is before the end of the year, or do you think it'll be in the early part of next year?
I think it's going to be towards the end of November that we're already established as a company, which is a big step, because a lot of these things with that people registering with the SEC are smaller and they're conceptual companies. And that, but the biggest one that I know that's been done is Elio Motors, which they're already trading on the stock exchange. They were the first that I know of in this space. They're building a very small concept car that I think will hold 2 people. It's like a little bubble going down the street. It's actually pretty cool. It's LEIO Motors. And that there's a whole broker, and we're gonna you have to go through a brokerage firm to do this too, although you can register on our site. So there's a North Capital is handling the whole back end broker transaction side for us, which did Elio Motors. We're using the law firm that did Elio Motors and the marketing firm that did Elio Motors. So we're using a very talented group that's been proven to get these types of things to work, and Elio Motors is already trading on over the counter.
Well, I think this is very exciting, and I want to thank you for coming on and explaining all of this. Before
it's complex, Harry, it's hard. It's a hard thing to understand in a couple minutes, but I want to give people the confidence that it's something going through the Securities Exchange Commission. And we actually mentioned in the draft A1 we filed with the SEC that we're going to use our best efforts to get it registered in public and trading on over the counter.
Well, but in terms of having confidence in WorthPoint, well, I remember that early meeting with you in New York City a number of years ago when WorthPoint was still a concept as opposed to a reality. And I think if anybody's concerned about having confidence in WorthPoint, they just need to go up to worthpoint.com and see what you have up there and watch what gets added on a weekly basis. It shows the commitment that everybody associated with WorthPoint has to make this a viable site for the long term.
I've taken 2 companies public before. I've never started one and taken it public, and I've gotten some companies relisted that lost their credibility. And this is a first for me, starting from a glimmer in my eye to getting it up and running. And we have about 12,000 and some subscribers now. And so it's in about 50,000 people come to the site a day. It's exciting.
Well, let's show the site and show where we can get some of the information about the offering if people are interested. This is the WorthPoint homepage that's on the screen now, and there's a gold bar across the bottom with a little blue button. It says reserve shares today. Reserve your shares today. And if we click on that, it takes you to a page with just all the information. Is that correct about what we're talking about?
Yep, that is it. And there'll be more information as time goes and it gets approved by lawyers and brokers and all that other good stuff.
Good. Okay.
It's a great video on the company, by the way.
I did like that. Is that the company that did the Elio Motors?
It is.
Too? Yeah, it's a really nice little video. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest giving it a good look.
That's WorthPoint's first commercial, and it will end up on social media in the near future.
That's very cool.
Well, again, I think, it sounds like this is a blatant commercial for WorthPoint, which in truth it is. But the point of the matter is that I do these WorthPoint chats with Harry Rinker every week because I firmly believe in what WorthPoint has done, what it is doing now, and what it's planning for the long-term future. And I don't lend my efforts easily. And I think the fact that we've made this commitment and we've continued to honor the commitments that we made say a lot about WorthPoint, actually.
Well, we value our community and just want to make it better, Harry. So that's our goal.
Well, I was talking to my wife the other day, Will, about what motivates people. And I was an old Boy Scout. Well, I was a Boy Scout once when I was younger. And the Boy Scouts have a phrase about leaving the campsite a better place than you found it. And I think over my professional career, I prefer to associate with people that believe that about the antiques and collectibles industry. The people that I think are going to leave this place a better campsite than they found it are the people that I do business with. So it's one of the reasons why I do business with WorthPoint.
Well, thank you, Harry, and I'll let you guys get on.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We'll appreciate that.
And by the way, we're going to Mexico tomorrow. Yay, with our contestant winners. We went to Lille.
Yeah, well, be careful about all that Mexican pottery.
I just care about the Mexican tequila, Harry, and our customers. So
yeah, there you are.
Hasta la vista.
All right. Have a good trip, Will.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, we've taken a lot of time on this, and we do have a couple of objects we'd like to look at tonight. And I know you have them ready to come up, and even though we only have 10 or 15 minutes left, we're going to get through the 2 objects anyway. We may not wind up talking about a lot of other stuff.
Right.
Let's see what objects we have available to look at. Oh, do we have the Thoren's turntable to look at?
We do. Let me find it. And the photos are a little bit small, so I've got to boost them here.
Okay, well, now I have to tell you, this email came into us, and, I know there's been a huge revival in hi-fi and stereo component units.
Right.
And there are magic names like Bose speakers and Gerard turntables and Marantz tuners and so forth. And here is this Thoren's turntable. And when you see it like this, you say, well, my gosh, what could this thing be worth? But this was the Cadillac, the Mercedes-Benz of turntables. And the answer is that restored, and this is the whole issue, when restored and playable, and this piece I don't think is playable right now, judging by the dust on the thing. But right now, this piece probably still has a value of about $300-400 with not knowing about it being restored. But what's interesting, Greg, when I went to research this up on eBay, there is a company up there that has a flat eBay price of $650 to restore this turntable. Now, the question you might ask, are you out of your mind? Who's going to pay $650 to restore this turntable? Well, the answer is, if this turntable is restored, it's worth between $1,500 and $2,500 or more, depending on the sub make of the model. So the question, however, is that you can't look at this and say, well, this is a $2,500 turntable or $1,500 turntable, because it's not restored. That's the whole point. This is coming out raw. And so you're going to have to build out what you pay for it. You're going to have to understand that the restoration costs, unless you have the capability of doing or know somebody that can do it for a lot less, it's going to be somewhere in the $400 to $600 range. So you pay a couple $100 for it, you're going to have $750 to $900 invested in it very quickly. Now, if it's restored and it's in perfect order, certainly, if people are selling them for $2,500 on eBay, you can go list one for $1,750 and undercut them all and probably sell it very quickly.
That's right.
The tendency when in finding something like this, let's go back to the picture you had just a second ago. When finding something like this in the basement, you tend to somehow see it as basement material, as junk. And this is why knowledge is power in the antiques and collectibles trade. You have to know when it pays to research something. This is one of the things that we talked about this summer at the Institute for the Study of Antiques and Collectibles in the researching course. When do you risk spending time researching something? Well, the nice thing about this is, go to the dial, Greg. There's the dial, is you've got all the information about Thoren's, but the most important thing is you got the ID number of the turntable, TD124, the model number. I mean, it took 1 second to go in there. Now, did you try to find this in the Worthopedia?
I did not get a chance to do that, although I know that
I think if I remember rightly, I looked in the Worthopedia and I found some. Yeah.
Well, we can check it real quick.
No, but I mean, this is another good example. Here's the home page of this, and you're going to type in Thoren's TD124 and click it on there, and look what you got, Greg.
I got them all.
I mean, there you are. And let's look at some of the prices. Now, again, you have to try to find a model that looks close to what you have.
Right. So this one here is the same model.
I don't know which one here you're talking about here. There you go.
Well, I've got it up here, but it's not the same because it doesn't have the wooden arm.
Right.
But it is the model TD124, and it says with Shure SME tone arm. So
yeah, but here's the situation, and that was 835 sell through in 2000 what? 11. But here's the deal. One of the values of WorthPoint is that you just don't find one example up there. You find a bunch of them, and so you can look at. Now go to the lower left of that second row.
Lower left, this one.
Yeah.
With the manuals.
Now look at that one, 1,027, and that one looks a little closer to what I think we have. Now you see there is a base there, and there is some material there.
Yes.
But I mean, if you could pick up that other turntable for $100 and pay someone $650 to restore it, you can be in good shape.
Yeah, you can make a good $300 or $400 profit minimum.
Exactly. And I mean, this is, and the other thing about it is that obviously looking here, you can, if you do have a problem with parts, if you try to do it yourself, if you have that skill set, look what you've got. You've got people selling parts.
Yep, maintenance kits,
all kinds of stuff, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's one of those things where where is too much? Too much is 400 to 500 bucks. That's too big a risk. But
Yeah.
but 150 to 250, it's got risk potential. So knowing varieties, knowing the different things, and again, there is a base for it. Now, my guess is that if I found that in the basement, right, like we showed that picture of it sitting on the tabletop, I'd say to the guy, "Where's the base?" Because my guess is that base is in the basement too. Not where that chair is, though. That's a different one.
Yeah, right.
But no, but that turntable that was sitting on top of the table without a wooden base, that wood base has got to be down in the basement too. I mean, it's just a matter of asking to look for it.
No reason for it to be separated.
That's correct. That's correct. So, you know, it's an interesting thing. Now, you threw up the platform rocker. This is an interesting piece too. Here's a little platform rocker. You know, a style that I know because they were still being used when I was a kid. For those people that are unfamiliar with this is actually a rocking chair. What happens is it's got springs underneath there, and it rocks back and forth. This one in the late 19th, early 20th century pattern. It's semi-Elizabethan revival, but it's more a generic style actually. It looks like that the red velvet on there may be period. That is, say it started out life with a piece. That's a plus and a minus. In most cases that I've found, these things have always been reupholstered. And if this has been reupholstered, at least somebody reupholstered it with an appropriate fabric. You know, when you buy a piece of furniture like this, you're buying the frame, and that's what you have to understand. And you also need to be concerned about what would it cost to reupholster it if you're not happy with the upholstery on it. I mean, you're looking at a $300-400 upholstery job here, and totally refinished and restored. This is only a $275 to $350 rocker. So if it's not in a condition of usability as it stands, you better be paying like $5 and $10 for the base, and then putting the rest of the money in the reupholstery, knowing that you're going to use it rather than collect it. And again, this is another one of those things that's, you know, all throughout the mid 20th century and most of the 20th century, we talked about value from a collector's point of view. What would a collector pay for something? Well, no collector is going to pay any money for this. Nobody's going to collect 500 platform rockers. This is reusable furniture. In the case of this one, it's a very interesting form of early mechanical furniture. And if you've never sat on a platform rocker, they sit extremely well, and they're wonderful. They rock really well, too. And so, you know, for somebody who's got a guest bedroom or something like that, this fits in really nicely. I think the person that has this could probably get 2 to 2 1/4. Now, what would that have been worth 10, 15 years ago? Probably $375 to $4 1/4. But the market's down, but it's not a $50 piece of furniture either.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that the market is down. Is there any market that's up right now?
Firearms are up. We're starting to see some recovery in some of the paper markets. Jigsaw puzzles are still doing okay if they're good quality ones. The good news is that all the markets seem to have hit their bottom. It doesn't look like there's going to be any more bottoming out. What was I? Oh, I had an interesting email from somebody that had been up to Brimmies, you know, the Brimfield market up in New England.
Yes.
And they said they were, it was well, you know who it was? It was the gal that wrote about those coffee tins we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Remember the Mrs. Brooks coffee tin and the
That's right. Yes.
Coffee tin? And we did a whole series on that. She said the prices for Roseville were out of sight. Now that's unusual because Roseville's a bargain right now on eBay. But if dealers at the flea markets are trying to hold with the higher end prices, there must be some expectation that they can get them. So maybe some of those markets are recovering. I think you have to be real careful. What happens right now in the market is it's where does a piece sit on the scarcity scale? I mean, if it's common or hard to find, that piece is probably not worthwhile. It's all about the high-end pieces right now, about the top 10 or 25 or 35 or 50 in any collecting category. Those are the ones that are in demand. There's enough old-time collectors for those. But on the other hand, when we were talking about those coffee tins, I made mention of the fact that the coffee tins are, that's a dying collector market, and they're going down, not up in value. Now, equate this to why I'm in Washington. We have a couple of members on the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee that are associated with the American Philatelic Society, stamp collectors. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you what, that is a market in the pits in the United States. I mean, it is a shadow of itself from 20 years ago, and it's an aging market. You go to stamp shows today, and there may be a few young people, but the attendance is terrible. And it seems like the attendance is just dropping off show after show. I don't know how it's going to recover. What I tell you what really has happened in a very odd way, it's gotten very sophisticated. There are now hundreds of stamp collecting categories. Not first day. Well, there is a first day cover, but there's charity stamp collectors. I mean, there's and those clubs have a cadre of anywhere from 25 to a couple hundred people. And within that community, it's strong, but that community doesn't expand out to the general public, doesn't expand out to the marketplace. And now the stamp people don't like us anyway, because we don't have stamps you can steam off envelopes.
Oh yes, they're all. Freezing.
Remember the old days when you used to put them in water, you put them in their freezer,
yeah,
put them under the steam kettle, trying to get them out, get the stamps off there so you can put them in the stamp album. Now you got to buy the whole paint and you can't take them off. So it's created quite a revolution. Well, anyway, we've spent a lot of time tonight. We did spend a lot of time talking about WorthPoint. I'm not going to apologize for that, because I think this is one of those cases where if you want to support this industry and you want to make sure that an important resource like WorthPoint is there, you might want to take a flyer in some of its stock. Knowing Will, he isn't going to go away, and he's going to keep this thing up and running. Also, if you have a question you'd like to ask us, either about how the market works, or you have an object you'd like to inquire about, we have a place where you can send those questions. It's community@worthpoint.com, community@worthpoint.com. If you're going to send in a question about an object, we want you to be as descriptive as possible. Size, markings, the more information you can provide, the better. Ideally, we would like to see 3 or 4 JPEG photos, the object as a whole, some of the details, that type of thing. So here it is again, community@worthpoint.com.
Good.
Well,
all right.
I got a big day tomorrow, a whole other day of meetings about stamps. I'm teaching online, and you're going to school, and I've got some papers to grade, so we're going to call it a night, but we're going to do it again next Wednesday.
It's about time to call it a night, and we will meet next Wednesday.
Yes.
You'll be back home next week?
I'll be in Kentwood, yep.
Okay, and I'll be here in Atlanta. So until next time, thanks for sitting in with WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker, and we'll see you next week. Bye, Harry.
Goodbye, sir.